Welcome to Personal Injury Marketing Minute.
Welcome to the Personal Injury Marketing Minute, where we quickly cover the hot topics in the legal marketing world. I'm your host, Lindsay Busfield, the Vice President and Partner over at Optimize My Firm. Today, I'm joined by Carl Nixon, a media analyst at DeWitt Marketing Group, a part of DeWitt Law, or better known as Just Call Mo. Carl brings 38 years of experience in radio and media sales, working closely with law firms on building effective radio campaigns. And in today's Spotlight on PIMM episode, we're digging into Carl's presentation about whether radio is still a viable marketing channel for law firms in 2026 and what it actually takes to make radio work. Thank you so much for joining us today, Carl.
Oh, you're most welcome. I'm happy to be seen anywhere or heard anywhere for that matter.
Well, I love anybody who has the gift of gab here. Clearly, you're going to be a presenter over at PIMM in May. So we are excited about that. I can't wait to meet you out there and hear more about your thoughts on radio and how it can be a great marketing asset for law firms. So I want to jump into this a little bit because radio isn't necessarily the first thing that law firms think about when it comes to marketing their firms. When you got started, it was a staple. So talk to me a little bit about the evolution of what you were seeing when you first got into radio and radio sales for law firms and what we're seeing now.
Well, the really interesting thing is very little has changed in the way of the audience size of radio. I always ask a question when I do a presentation. When you consider all of the various new ways that people access information, their phone, their tablet, they're bombarded with billboards, electronic billboards, you name it. A radio is still in every car. And now it's accessible any number of other ways, at your desk, on your phone. It's still radio. So the question that I always ask is, how much in the last 20 years do you think the radio audience overall has declined? And people will say, well, like Yellow Pages doesn't exist and, that cable TV and whatever, we'll say 20%. And the reality is there are more people listening to radio today than there were 20 years ago. And the reason for that is pretty simple. The population has grown and the percent of listenership of the population has stayed almost steady. Almost 93% of all adults listen to radio at least 15 minutes a week over the course of a week. And a good number of those people listen a whole lot more than that. But radio is not only still viable, it's very vital, we feel.
And I have no problem believing that because I listen to the radio in the car. I used to have Sirius XM, and I don't know if we're talking about both of these in conjunction with each other, and I think that there's an argument for that or against. But when I'm in the car, I very rarely have any sort of phone or anything plugged into it. I click on the radio. My daughters, they know their presets. They want Rock FM or the alternative channel, and they know how to get there. So not only am I listening to the radio, but I've got a couple little radio listeners coming up the generation behind as well.
Yeah, and that's how most people were first exposed to radio, quite honestly, Lindsay. What you're saying is it is passed down and, you're taking your kids to school, you're taking them to baseball or whatever it is. And that's when they tune in. Otherwise, it is a little different than it was, say, maybe, I don't know, when I was a kid, back when television was black and white and all those other things. But, you'd still listen to the radio in your home. And people do now. It's just that they access it differently. on their computer or whatnot. And it's still terrestrial radio, the traditional radio stations. It's not, Sirius XM. Well, that went so well that there used to be two of them. Now they're one thing together. And radio's always been, cassette tapes are going to ruin radio. And, CDs will ruin radio. Oh, streaming, that's the death of radio. Radio is resilient because it is local. If done correctly, it is local and it is accessible to people about what's going on in their community. If I'm living in Las Vegas, which I am, and our office is in Orlando, which it is, I need information on both. And if I'm listening to, just throw a name out there that everyone knows, Howard Stern in New York, well, that might be entertaining, but he's not very vital locally.
Right.
There's still, traffic on the ones and weather on the fours and things like that. That stuff hasn't changed. And the beauty thing about radio is you can tailor the station audience to what it is that you're trying to do. For instance, in personal injury law, we don't have a tactic, meaning we can't have 30% off this week if you get into a wreck, or get into a wreck before the end of the month and we'll give you a gift purchase.
There's no gimmick that you can do with it, right?
The thing is, when somebody needs our services, it might be among the worst days of their life because something really bad has happened. And so all we can do is be accessible. Our name, our reputation needs to be accessible to that person when, God forbid, something horrible happens. And radio is outstanding for that. Using personalities as our spokesperson is outstanding for that because people are with that personality every day or every weekday when you're going to work, whatever your schedule calls for. And so they invite that personality, that station, that music, that information into their car. They granted permission. And so all we can do then is, as closely as possible, become a part of that information stream. And that's what we aim to do.
And that's a great goal and a great objective and some very good points in there. And I think something to add to that is the intent factor and the correlation factor, where this is especially true with personal injury attorneys, where if your bread and butter is a car accident and somebody has been listening to your ad while they're in the car, there's going to be some automatic correlation going on psychologically that's going to pair you together. And it's going to have a different effect than if they see your ad on a website or if they see your ad on TV, because they are in the moment and
right.
All of those associations are going to come back to it, especially for listeners who are in the car. And that could be true of a similar demographic who listens to radio while they're working and has the radio turned all the way up. And, God forbid, there's a workplace accident. They're going to have that association as well. So using the radio to your advantage based off of the types of cases that you're trying to attract is going to have a huge play there, I would think.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. We obviously can't be everywhere all the time. But the thing that is so interesting about radio is you can find your group. We have a little thing at DeWitt Marketing Group that we, formalized with the DeWitt Law Firm to start with, which is we call our group of prospective clients the family union. And the family union is not the demographic that many advertisers seek out. You know, if you get any radio rep who doesn't know anything about your business, they'll come into your office and they'll say, oh, we have the most people that make over $150,000 and they do this, that, and something else. Well, we're trying to reach people who are on the road every day. And so that loosely, you know, whether they're an independent contractor or a union, we call them union, but they're family people who have to get into their work truck, who have to get into their automobile, whatever it is, they have to get from point A to point B, whether point B is a work site or point B is an office. And they tend to be people of middle incomes, simply because people of higher incomes, we have discovered, generally know a lawyer, might be a lawyer, you know, have a lawyer, whatever it is, they're not very susceptible to new things. So our little, what we call family union group, you know, fits a very specific mold. And we find stations that, you know, correlate to that. And that's the beautiful thing about radio. Because a certain life group will listen to a certain station, and it correlates to that demographic. When somebody watches a TV show, for instance, let's say NCIS, been on forever on CBS. Well, people don't say, oh yeah, CBS, man, that's my network. No, they like that show. You know, and instead of, you know, well, I like, you know, classic rock music, for instance, you know, and they grew up on the Rolling Stones and, you know, stuff like that. People who watch CBS, who watch NCIS, may watch another NCIS, because I think they've got NCISs all over the place, but, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to leave it on that channel. I mean, 35 years ago, when your kid was your remote and you told them to go change the channel, sure, you just tend to leave it on and that was your station and whatever. But that has changed dramatically with the advent of the clicker.
Absolutely, and that shift has really evolved how the process works. And I'm sure that as you are developing ads to go on these different channels, you have your target market in mind. And what's nice is you can create the message around who your target market is based off of what channel they're listening to and what their general interests are. And so, how are you able to collect the data to help inform those branding and messaging decisions?
Well, so some of it is, I mean, there's data, there are statistics, but as somebody famous once said, there are lies, there are damn lies, and then there are statistics. So some of it is simply your observation. Like, you know, you wouldn't find me, for instance, listening to a hip hop station. You know, nor probably we wouldn't find you listening to I mean, maybe, but the thing is, there's different life groups that go with different genres. And the thing is, the stations in partnership with Nielsen, which back in the day used to be called Arbitron, Nielsen, the same people that rate TV stations, they do surveys that are as close to scientific as we can get within the industry. And they publish these surveys for a cost. And most every radio station of any size subscribes to these. And that's what they go to market with. They go to market with these, hey, this is our classic rock station. We tend to reach more men from 45 to 64, more so than women. And, you know, and so it's a blizzard of statistics, but once 38 years in, you can, you know, read those statistics and figure out, you know, who exactly are we reaching? importantly, how many of these people are we reaching? And then it just becomes a statistical probability. Because again, no offers involved. It's just, are we repeatedly with a concise message reaching the right people who would be prone to using our services? It cannot be a statistical certainty, because if it were, it'd be a whole lot easier and a whole lot cheaper.
Probably a lot creepier if we knew exactly who was listening to the radio station.
Well, I think with some of the online stuff, we might well be getting there.
I think we're probably past that point. Well, and then the flip side of this is, there's one side of it is looking at, okay, well, who's most likely to listen to this channel and listen to our ad and get exposed to that? On the other side of it is the challenge of attribution. So how do you know that your campaign is working? Clearly, there are a lot of different marketing efforts at play with some of these larger law firms where you have SEO, you have TV, you have radio, and you have billboards. How do you attribute your successes to the radio?
Well, again, some of it's statistical probability, and some of it is in-house surveying, and some of it is just flat out guesswork. What's that old expression? I know that half of my advertising works. I just don't know which half. If we were to, without any guidance to our intake people, say something along the lines of, make sure to ask where they heard about us. 9 out of 10 people, don't give a darn about, they've got a problem. You're trying to fix their problem. They're not ready to help.
Right. This isn't their priority right now.
So it's not top of mind for them. But 9 out of 10 people will say, well, I found you on the internet.
Right. And clearly the consumer or the prospective client, the family is not very focused on where that attribution, that isn't their priority right now. They know where they probably last found you, but they are not cognizant of, here is the train that led up to me actually clicking on your website.
Exactly. And as I'm sure you could attest to, SEO helps you with that, not only last touch attribution, but also where in the consumer journey they did find you. So our philosophy at DeWitt Marketing Group / DeWitt Law is we have top of the funnel, advertising funnel leads and lead gen. And then there's bottom of the funnel stuff. And the bottom of the funnel stuff for us primarily is local service ads, LSAs, as they're known. Some people use pay-per-click. Some people use both. But we have found that LSAs give the best bang for our buck. So if someone replies to one of our local service ads, there's a pretty significant chance that that's not the first thing they saw, or they maybe saw one of our social media posts, or maybe they heard it on the radio, but something at the top of the funnel got them to the bottom of the funnel.
Right.
And as our case managers work the case and they talk more with the client, about the circumstances. And as we work, because, the cases can take anywhere from 3 months to 12 months usually, but they can go on for 3 years, depending upon how bad the situation is and how much of a roadblock the insurance companies throw up. But as we work with those people through the weeks and months, then you can have a more concise conversation with them about, maybe you heard us on the radio, or maybe you saw one of our crazy Instagram posts about eating chicken parm, or, whatever it is we do. And, so we try to have what as we call it, it's because it's called this, aided recall, that the case managers work back with the clients as the case moves along, so it's not just, how did you hear about us? But, did you hear about us? Did you just click it because you liked our name? Did you hear us on the sports station? Did you hear us on the country music station? Whatever it is. And oftentimes throughout the process, you can find attribution.
Yeah.
And sometimes you never do. Yeah, it's not horribly scientific. The radio groups, some of the bigger ones now have, with access to Google Analytics, there are attribution models, and generally those things are, again, statistics, lies, damn lies. During this period of time that your ad was running, your analytics show that there was a 4% greater likelihood of calls or whatever. Nobody's sitting around the phone or sitting around the radio waiting to hear our ad and call.
No.
Much as every radio person would like you to believe that, particularly in our vertical, in the personal injury space.
Right. When I was talking to somebody earlier today, Joy Avila, who's the creative director over at James Scott Farron, she told me that it used to be that you had 7 touch points in order to get a client to convert. And now it's moved up to 20. And so those numbers are just absolutely insane. So for personal injury attorneys, those touch points clearly aren't sending out 20 pieces of mail saying, have you been in an accident? Have you been in an accident? No, it's all of these different different ways that you can get your name in front of a prospective client. And part of that's radio. Part of that is social media. Part of that is SEO. Part of that is TV. And so no matter where these touch points are coming from, they're working in conjunction because, and they all help each other out. So it is kind of a messy web of attribution. But if you notice that your phone is ringing more since starting the since starting the radio ads, it's working. There's a little bit of common sense that goes along with that. But the question I have next for you is, how long do you have to be running radio ads for you to see that it works? Or does it work?
That's a great question. Again, because of our vertical, because it's not you never know when you need it sort of thing. I would tell anyone that if they don't give a campaign at least 6 months, then do something else with the money. I don't know what, throw an office party, the increased, employee satisfaction will probably increase your business more so than a 6-month radio campaign. There are 2 kinds of cases too. I mean, and this is what we found about pay-per-click. You get a lot of people that'll just click the first name and go about it, but there's been absolutely no vetting of that lead whatsoever.
Right.
And depending upon what city you're in, clicks can be anywhere from a few hundred to $1,000 or more, just per click, with zero vetting whatsoever about, someone who doesn't understand that, you jumped the curb and, you blew out a tire. That's not great, but when you see the lawyers that have billboards and they're waving around, $2 million checks, I got, our client $2 million. If somebody got $2 million, something really horrible happened, like really, really horrible.
Yeah.
And so, that's another advantage of radio, is that we can educate people. Right now, for instance, we're in the middle of, with ourselves in Orlando and maybe half a dozen other clients we work with throughout the country. We're in the middle of a uninsured motorists educational campaign. And here's why. Because it doesn't matter how badly you're hurt, and it doesn't matter how bad the other person is at fault. If they don't have any insurance, if they don't have any assets, it doesn't matter, and so, and as costs on everything go up, you have to have uninsured motorists to protect yourself.
Yeah.
And we particularly stress that with folks who could potentially be motorcycle accident clients, because nearly every motorcycle accident's awful.
Yeah.
I mean, even if it's a 15 mile an hour, but the bike goes down, you go down with it. It's bad. And as a cyclist, if you don't have uninsured motorists and the guy that hit you doesn't have insurance, and believe me, Orlando and Las Vegas are two of the worst places, for that. People that just, they may not even have tags on their car, so yeah, it is an educational thing. And so that's sort of the message that we're trying to spread. We're not trying to pump up the insurance industry at all, because we're usually at odds with them. But we are trying to educate people to the fact that, bad enough that you get into an accident, worse that there's no way to recover.
Yeah. And I think it's an important piece of radio, and it's a great way that you can have those informational conversations, even if it's a one-way informational conversation. You can use it as a great tool, both to help vet cases if they find out that the other person doesn't have insurance, but also to show that you have a vested interest in the well-being of your prospective clients in your community, because you don't want anybody getting hurt. And if they do get hurt, you want to make sure that they're protected. And I think that that's a great way to build trust within the community without, in addition to spreading some brand awareness and making sure that everybody is associating your brand name with your caring of the community.
Yeah. Yeah. We and believe me, there's no one way to do this marketing thing. If there was, PIMM wouldn't exist. Everybody would just do whatever that one thing is, and that would be that. But the attorneys, some people are very successful with the big checks. Hey, on the billboard, we got our clients $1 million, $2 million, 400,000, whatever, and that resonates with somebody. Then there are people who have heard that, our firm takes care of clients and walks you through the medical process, and walks you through the forms and all of those things. Because unless you have experience with it, and God, I hope you don't have experience with being in a car wreck, but who knows what to do?
Right.
Yeah,
they don't teach a class on this in high school.
No. And I guess that's good. But anyway, the bottom line is that there is no one size fits all. There is no, just do it this way, where this is what works for us.
Yeah.
Radio works for us, and I've worked with Mo 11, 12 years now, before he brought me on as an employee. The DeWitt Law Firm was primarily known as a family law firm. And then as Mo has sort of taken over the reins of the firm, it sort of gravitated more towards personal injury. That's why the separation of the DeWitt Law Firm and Just Call Mo. Injured on the go, just call Mo. That's what we do, so that if that happens, people will hopefully think of us to represent them. And other people, they dress in fancy suits or Batman costumes or whatever wild thing they can put on television, and they want you to remember them that way. And I know those people are successful in their own way. And, there's a lawyer group I think they're in the Midwest, but, the Hammer, and they take sledgehammers to automobiles and whatever, but it works for them. We do what fits our personality.
Right. And I think that's an important distinction because it's not a one size fits all. And everybody is fighting each other in this attention based economy. And because that is how you get ahead, is you get your slice of attention, you get your eyes, you get your ears, and that is how you get clients. And clearly there are attorneys that radio works for. There are attorneys that radio doesn't work for. You've, I'm sure, seen both sides of this. For those who are using radio well, what are some of the common themes that you see in successful radio campaigns and maybe even amongst the law firms that use them?
Integration within the community. You can't just run ads. You got to be part of the station. You got to be part of the community. Ideally, you would have a personality that you've partnered with, who is your endorser, spokesperson, whatever. And not only on the air, but also opportunities online exist with personalities. And you find a radio personality who, for lack of any better term, gets it. Not somebody who's like, oh, okay, we'll read this next spot. What's the next one? Whatever. Someone who will actually interconnect with our attorney client. Because the thing is, there are these giant national firms that everyone who goes to a PIMM show, a PIMM convention, a group, PIMM group, whatever it is, they've all got that one big 800-pound gorilla that's come into their market. And, oh, my God, what do I do now? Because they have more money than the good Lord himself. What do I do? And radio is a great way of integrating yourself into the community in a way that big guy can't.
Right. It makes that personal touch. And I love that you bring PILMA back up because we are going to PILMA here in just a couple of months. And I know I'm excited, but tell me, what are you looking forward to most about PILMA?
Well, this will be my first time actually speaking at PILMA. We've always said, I work with a handful of other firms other than ourselves. And when I say work with, I'll answer any PILMA member's questions about radio because there's, 2 or 3 people that are ad agencies that are very good, that are radio specialists that are very good, that are there. And I'm in no way, shape, or form in competition with them. All Mo wanted to do when he set up DeWitt Marketing Group was be able to help other PILMA members and also NAML, we're in the National Association of Motorcycle Injury Lawyers, sort of a sister group, if you will.
Yeah.
That's why he hired me. Handle his stuff because we're all over the radio and, very invested in it. But other members who, you sit at these, quarterly group meetings and, there might be 12 or 15 other people because once you're involved in PILMA, it's not just an annual, super show. That's just like the Super Bowl, but there's games every quarter, right? You go and you speak to others within your little designated group. What's working? What's not working? What can we do better? That kind of thing. My whole goal, my entire goal, because I'm not looking to take on any more clients, quite honestly, because as it exists right now, DeWitt Marketing Group is me. I'm not a big agency or whatever, but I do work with a few folks. But my entire goal is to just make people at PILMA aware that radio is not only viable, it's vital. And why? Some of the same things that we talked about here today. The statistic that blows everybody's mind is I will give you a number and you tell me what it is. And the number is 3 million.
The radio listeners.
Now, okay, so there's an answer. It's not the answer we're looking
It's not the right one.
But 3 million is the number of ads projected this year, 2026, based on the last several months' data, but projected into 2026, 3 million radio spots will be run by the largest personal injury law firm in the country, across the country. So I don't know what a radio spot costs here versus there, but 3 million of anything is expensive. And so I don't think the largest injury firm in America would be spending that kind of money for 3 million spots over the course of a year if it didn't work.
That's true. That's absolutely true. And it's true across radio. It's true across PPC, because I know that there's millions of dollars being spent into that. There's, and also LSAs and all of the different, there's so many different marketing channels and avenues that the big guys are pouring lots and lots of money into, but especially radio, because if you can dominate any sort of media channel, regardless of how many listeners you have, regardless of how many clicks you're getting, if you can be the it person on that medium, then you're going to have the book. You're going to have a bigger slice of the pie, and you can nudge out your competitors.
That's exactly right. I mean, the bottom line is that there's, just as there's television and radio and billboards and whatever else, there's probably 10 or 12 different ways to do radio. We have our lane, we drive in it. I help some other firms across the country drive in that same lane. We are not recreating the wheel, so to speak. We're just repeating successes in different areas. And every market's different, but people, generally speaking, are the same. You just got to know where to find them. And that's what we do.
And that's true across the board. Well, those are some great insights. Thank you so much for coming on our show today and talking about how radio can still be a really vital, viable asset for personal injury firms across the country. And I look forward to hearing your PILMA presentation coming up in just a couple months, meeting you in person. And that's going to wrap up today's episode of the Personal Injury Marketing Minute. So if you are a personal injury attorney who is looking to grow your firm with SEO or other marketing, please reach out to me at lindsay@optimizemyfirm.com, and you can learn more about Whit Law and everything that they have going on. Carl, what is your website address?
JustCallMo.com.
Go to justcallmo.com. Well, thank you so much, Carl. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.